Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unapologetically You, where we discuss all things health and wellness, and we use science-backed tools to support you and your family, and hopefully give you thought-provoking conversations that get you motivated to look after yourself and the ones you love. Now, today is a special podcast because I've brought in a special guest who will help me understand today's hot topic of the day. In today's podcast, we are dedicating and exploring men's mental health and wellness. We will hear stories and practical examples, inspirational examples and stories of how to foster emotional well-being. But before we begin, I want to firstly thank you for listening in, for finding us, and more importantly, for showing up for yourself. So if you'd like to support what we're doing, head over to our Patreon page where you can support us for the price of a small cup of coffee. We'd appreciate if you share this podcast too, but without further ado, I know the beautiful Carolee is missing in action. She is spending her much needed time exploring Thailand at the moment. So that gives me this amazing opportunity to welcome our special guest, Rich. Hi, Rich.
Hi, Tulsi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am absolutely amazing. Thank you very much.
I love that. You can definitely, before we actually hit record, guys, I was like, Rich, you've really spruced up yourself. So those who are watching on YouTube, you're going to be able to see his face. But for those who are just listening in, he's definitely made an effort.
100%. It's not the normal gym attire that I would normally be wearing, but hey, you've got to make an effort when you're a special guest on a special podcast.
For sure. And the thing is, like, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later anyway, but I feel like you look different. Like, you know how you carry yourself differently and your energy just kind of shows up. People can kind of see the happiness, right? See the wellness rather than, I don't know. It's just like you can end up seeing, oh, well, you don't look great, or you look tired, or, wonderful compliments like that.
Absolutely. And I think energy is a really interesting topic. People think energy is just how tired you are. There is so much more to energy. And I'm sure, knowing you, Tulsi, that you've covered this many a time, but energy is a feeling. It's how you show up. It's how you act every day. It's your thoughts. It's everything that goes into your day rather than just how alive or tired you feel. And the best way to put it for me, and I felt this morning, actually, funnily enough, but is, when you go into a room and you can immediately feel like, oh, there's someone's here that is a little bit toxic, or there's someone's had an argument. You're like, oh, I feel that there's an elephant in the room, as the saying goes, or you go somewhere, you meet someone, immediately everything just lights up like sunshine. And that is energy. You can give off positive energy, and if you're attracting positive energy and you give off a positive energy, you're just gonna other people around you are gonna feel that, and honestly, it feels incredible.
It does, it does. And I love that you said that. I'm sure we're going to talk about that in our hot topic of the day. But before we begin, I'll be doing a little question and answer, Kelly and I. And Rich, I want to kind of grill you a little bit. What is your biggest win in this week so far? So we normally record our podcast on a Tuesday, so we haven't actually had a full week. So from this Tuesday to last Tuesday, what was your biggest win?
You know what? It's a really interesting question, but I think my answer is that I've got up every single morning at 5 a.m. and gone to the gym at 6 a.m. I'm really working on my goals at the moment. I'm really focused and really dedicated. But it's actually the habits that I've formed, and funnily enough, it came from your coaching. But it's the habits I've formed that allows me to get up at that time to go and achieve what I want to achieve. And my morning routine, which includes not only getting up at 5, but my morning gratitude, my meditation, and then going off to the gym. It's just been so consistent. I've done it for the whole week, and I honestly feel incredible.
And that actually leads me to the next question. I grilled Kelly on what made you smile. So obviously your spirit is uplifted. You can feel your energy radiating through. But what made you smile? And it could be one or two things, but I'm intrigued.
Well, apart from the most obvious in chatting to you, Tulsi, I'm gonna I'm gonna say actually, the when I come back from the gym each morning, my son is getting dressed. So I love seeing my kids. My kids bring me so much positivity and energy. But this morning coming back, my son was standing at the window. He just, as soon as he saw me, gave the biggest smile. He was waving frantically, and you know what? You just can't not smile. It gave me a massive beaming smile and automatically made me feel better.
I mean, why don't adults do that? I'm pretty sure some adults do. You know, when you haven't seen a friend, and do you remember like teenage girls would scream at each other before they would hug? It's like, why don't people do that anymore? Like, why don't we welcome them with open arms? And like, it's so good to see you.
You know what? I don't know whether it's just British people, but like honestly, you smile at someone who you don't know, and I quite often do. I'll say hello to people. I smile at people, especially in the gym. Like I love a spa and a sauna after the gym, and you know, you say hello to someone, and people like scowl at you. You're like, "What are you doing?" Like, or if you're in the underground, you say hello to anyone in the underground, like it's game over. Like, but I just don't understand it.
But I think you raise a really good point, but I definitely think it's the environment. So I was speaking to my friend the other day and she was like, isn't it really funny how people are smiling at you when you're walking? I was like, yes, but where are they? They're out in nature. You know, they're actually doing some movement for their body. So they're going into that, you know, meditative state. Even if people don't realize they're meditating, a lot of times, if you're taking in your surroundings, if you're just breathing, if you're just looking at the birds or the trees or the wind blowing through the leaves, it really does hone you into that meditative state, and people are often happier. So when I went for a walk yesterday, I haven't been out yet, but yesterday I was like, I'm going to smile at everyone. It doesn't even matter if they respond, but every single person did respond. And it's just like, you wouldn't get that on the underground.
No, and you know what the funny thing is when you start changing your sort of your state and your perspective on things and you start talking to people. Now the first few times it seems really, really weird. Saying hello to a randomer in public is strange. But actually when you do it the first time and they say hello and smile back at you and you think, oh, that was all right. And then the next time and the next, it just gets easier and easier. And like, you know, now you can just walk past people, say hello, smile, and not only do you feel better, but you also know that you've made their day feel better as well. So it's definitely worthwhile.
It's not even understanding that their day is better. It's just you're spreading that little bit of joy, right? And you're spreading that energy. And we know that it will branch out to other areas of their life because we know how quick the opposite energy can be. So if somebody bites at you or is short with you, is temperamental or angry with you, and you're on the receiving end of that, it's really heavy, right? So then you end up pushing that on somebody else because sometimes it's like, well, I now need to deload and offload this type of energy. But it's so reciprocal when you end up being in the energy of love, of peace, tranquility, of harmony, and all these things. Well, they've actually had a study, haven't they, where they said the energy is far more greater and a much more expanded, like for love, for example, it can go like 8 to 9 feet beyond your physical body. And I just found it fascinating that actually, yeah, you are spreading that little bit of joy, and whatever they do with that joy, that's up to them, right?
No, absolutely. And you know what? I actually really want to see that study now. So I that's a thing to do. That's on my to-do list is go and find that study and find out a bit more. But no, you certainly feel people you know, from a distance. You know, like I said, that walking into a room, you can already feel that energy. Or you know, if you're near to someone, whether it's positive or not so much, you can feel that. And I genuinely believe if you're constantly giving off positive energy, you know,
Mhm.
happiness, love, joy, all those amazing feelings, you'll
Mhm.
attract more of that into your life as well, and more of those people will be around you, which makes you feel even better. So it's a win-win.
And so it's really funny you say that because it's just like attracts energy attracts energy, right? So that is really interesting for sure. For sure. And I normally I the last question that I ask Kelly is what is the intention for the week humming for you? Do you set intentions for the week ahead, or am I putting you on the spot?
You are putting me on the spot, but I do set targets. Now, my sort of thing for me is that I know full well that if I set my targets and I go through my processes that I've set up, so the daily actions that I need to take, it will get me to my target. So my intentions, again, work-wise and personal-wise, work-wise, I've got my intentions. I need to go through my processes and I will reach my targets. But then personally, which I happily talk about is the fact that, I know full well that if I get up at 5 every single morning, hit the gym at 6, and go through my processes there, I will reach my goals. And my goals are absolutely massive. I know you know them, Tulshi, and I've written them down many a time as part of your coaching, which was just phenomenal. But I know full well that I will reach my goals, and I'll reach them in probably record time compared to what I thought I would, simply because I'm going through the processes and they lead towards my goals. So, yeah.
So the intention, let me just break it down. The intention is to continue on the regularity of those processes. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The intention is to keep the momentum rolling for reaching those goals.
And it's so funny because I saw online just recently, Simon Sinek had said this very same thing. He said, we are our habits, and our habits make up our goals. So it's not a case of we need to accomplish this one thing. It's like, what are you doing every day to accomplish that goal? So I feel like you've hit the nail on the head, especially what he was breaking down online to say, it doesn't matter about this big goal. Yeah, of course you want to get there or you want to achieve this, but what are you doing each day to chip away at that? So I recently finished my manuscript, but before I'd actually started, and it's gotten to this point, I was like, okay, I'm gonna write 1,000 words a day. That is my intention. And it doesn't matter whether I'm in the flow or whether, I'm stuck. I'm going to sit there until I write 1,000 words. And usually when I get into the flow, I'm like, how sometimes you want to keep writing or you want to keep doing, right? And it's like, no, I've set myself a target, because then that's renewed motivation for the next day, right? Because then you're just like, I'm maybe not stop mid-sentence, but sometimes it's like, right, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to go off from tomorrow. So it's like I'm already setting myself up for success for tomorrow's 1,000 words, right?
Absolutely. And I think the interesting thing is take it like rolling a ball. To have that first push, it takes a lot of energy to push a ball along. It's the overcoming the inertia, getting the ball rolling. When that ball's rolling, every little push gets easier and easier because the ball's already moving. It's that momentum that is taking place. And that's exactly the same in life. I was talking to people yesterday. I put up on my Instagram about getting up at 5 a.m. who's with me, and someone said, oh, how do you do that? And I go, honestly, to start with, it's hard. Don't get me wrong, there are little tricks, and you taught me one of them, which was absolutely amazing to keep the process going. But I was saying, look, even if I am feeling really tired and it takes me 40 minutes to get out of bed, which it has done on occasions. And even if I'm late to go into the gym, I will still go to the gym and do what I need to do, even if I'm not feeling it, even if it's just 5 minutes in the gym. I said the reason being is that you've created a habit, and that habit you just keep forming. And even just going there and just pushing that ball a little bit more, even if it's just the tiniest little push, you're keeping the ball rolling. So if you are going to achieve anything, like your manuscript, like you said, I did exactly the same for my book, for 5 a.m. starts and going to the gym, whatever it might be. Actually, even if you're not feeling like it, just do a little bit, because it just keeps that ball moving. And, moving is better than standing still. Even if it is in the wrong direction, it's just better than just standing still doing nothing. You're taking some sort of action. And if your belief in achieving those goals is there, you will find that right direction eventually. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I completely agree with you on that one. So, Rich, thank you for answering those questions. We're gonna move on to the hot topic of the day today. And Rich, I've read your book. and thank you. It was absolutely amazing. So for those of you who don't know, I'm not going to introduce Rich, actually. He's going to introduce himself, but I will introduce his book, Life Behind the Mask: How Postnatal Depression Affected Me as a Man. So Rich Wharton, he is... Rich, honestly, you've written it so well. I remember reading it and I was like, is this it? Like, give me more. Like, how have you written this book? I need more. So it was really good because it was enticing. I was like, I texted you, didn't I? As soon as I was finished, I was like, I need more material, please. But it really does give insight, in all seriousness, to your well-being, which was so important. To actually be vulnerable and say, look, this is me, this is what I went through, this is my honest experience. And that is a big deal. That takes a lot of courage. But for our audience who don't know you, tell us a bit about yourself. You know, how did you get to that book? What were you going through regarding your mental, physical, emotional wellness? And just, yeah, let us know a little bit more about how you actually were feeling before you actually thought this is something that needs to be in the public domain.
No, absolutely. So I suffered postnatal depression when my son, who's nearly 2 now, which is scary, was born. Little bit of background about it. I was a firefighter at the time. I was a health and wellness coach. I was Mr. Positivity, as it were, that my friends knew me as. I had a really sort of upbeat, uplifting life. I was showing the world that actually I was feeling incredible. You know, I was in great shape. I hopefully still am in great shape. But you know, everything was going really well. And for me, obviously when my son Archie was born, I honestly cannot explain as to why I went through what I went through. I honestly don't really know. There was numerous little things going on in life, as there is for everyone, but the biggest thing for me was that I actually was really suffering, and I felt that I just couldn't show anyone. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't speak to anyone, and the reason being, obviously, being a firefighter, it's a really sort of macho job where you don't really talk about your feelings. Now, like, let me put this out there, it's changing rapidly, but that's how I felt at the time. As a health and wellness coach, I was thinking a lot of people rely on me, a lot of people need me to sort of help them and support them. So how can I be feeling down when I've got to show up for my clients and the people around me? So it was a really sort of difficult time, and you know what, at the time, my wife, like, she didn't really understand it, you know, and she's read my book as well, but she kind of understands the fact that she wasn't really there for me, in the sense that she was around, but she may have been going through her own stuff. She may have obviously been you know, struggling. I don't know. We didn't really talk about it too much, and when I did try and open up, I got sort of a cold response. And I just didn't feel like I had any friends or family that I could really talk to at that time. And the biggest thing for me was you know, I wrote this book at the time as well. Like, this was my way of offloading, putting things on paper, trying to just get stuff out of my head and put it on paper. So the book is raw. It's unedited. I deliberately self-published. I didn't get an editor or anything at all. It's literally how I was feeling at that time, and obviously what I did afterwards. But the biggest thing for me was that I ended up opening up to people, 2 friends, both of which are something really, really important. And I just want to put this out there, Tulsi, because for me, I think it's such an important thing, especially around men. But you know, when you greet someone, you go, hello, how are you? Obviously, you got the intention of finding out how they are, but most people think that's just a greeting and will come back, yeah, I'm good, thanks. Or I think actually the most common one is, I'm not too bad, which double negative. You know, I now say I'm great if I'm feeling great. Obviously, if I don't, I now know to talk about actually I'm not feeling great or whatever. But most people just give a standard response. these two people at separate times asked me such an important thing. And they asked me, how are you, for a second time. Now, that second, how are you, actually gives that person the right to talk about how they are. Like, it's not just a greeting. Yeah, that is someone asking you, generally, how are you doing? And that for me was enough to turn around and go, actually, I'm not feeling good at all. Like, I'm in a really bad place. And you know what? Just slightly before that, which I've missed out, I did search online. I did the standards, go onto Google, no product placement, so other search engines are available. But I went on to, I went onto Google and I just typed in how I was feeling, and, you know, the same things popped up. But then obviously looked at postnatal depression and a lot of information about women suffering postnatal depression. I was literally ticking every single box on there. Apart from that, I wasn't female, and it was because I was a man. And you know what? I was just like, this is me. This is me. I need sort of that help, but I couldn't find any information about men. So I did a typical bloke thing of just ignoring it. So when my friends did speak to me and asked me that, how are you, for the second time, and I opened up, it genuinely felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And people who have been suffering from mental health issues, then, you know, people will understand how that actually feels. It's one of those feelings that you will never understand unless you've been through it. It's kind of one of those things. But, you know, it was a huge weight lift off my shoulders. And the best way to describe my sort of, and I actually described this to the counsellor I was talking about, is that, you know, when you go into like a block of flats or like a school office, as it were, and there's loads of pigeonholes where you put the posts and stuff, and it's just like the postie has come in and just, instead of putting it in the right hole, they've just dropped it on the floor, and the next time dropped it on the floor, and the next time, and it just built up to the point where it's just overflowing. That's how I felt. Say about the straw that broke the camel's back, you know, Archie being born was probably just another thing, just a big thing that happened. But it was just like, that was a thing that kind of just went, oh wow, I've got some issues, I need some help. So that was kind of how it sort of started. But once I opened up to one person, and obviously the second person, it made it a whole lot easier. Now, the hardest bit was probably telling my parents, and I obviously made a quite a point of this in my book. Like, my parents, quite old-fashioned, really supportive, don't get me wrong. And if mum and dad, if you're listening to this at all, if you fall across this, then, you know, there's full love meant to this. And, you know, I've told you this in person as well. But the thing is that I felt that they wouldn't understand how I was going through. I know my dad especially had strong feelings about mental health, and, you know, his previous feelings were that it was just like attention seeking. He's told to me that when I was younger, and obviously, you know, that sort of changed now. And, you know, fair play to him for changing his thoughts and feelings around that. But for me, it was, I felt it really difficult to tell him. Once I did tell him, it was like there was no issue. Like, it was just like they just turned around and said, "Yeah, we know," and that was it. And I was like, "Oh, okay." It was a really sort of a relief sort of moment. But, you know, it's more the build up and what you tell yourself in your head, and especially when you're in that moment when you're suffering anyway, it's made like 100 times worse. So that was kind of like the start of it. I don't really want to tell the whole thing because it's like, it's not a long book, it's a short book. The reason why I wrote it is simply because I want people to, one, understand how I felt, but more for their sake in what they can do. You know, the latter half of the book, and it's kind of like how I got myself, when I say get out of it, or, you know, I got that support. You know, I did go and get counselling as a firefighter. I used the Fire Brigade's charity, and they were a massive help for me. It was simply incredible. I actually went and got help. Funnily enough, I didn't go to my doctors because I didn't want it on my medical record, because my work see my medical record. Genuine truth. And now I look back on it and I go, Like, that was so stupid. Like, it honestly, your health and your mental health is so much more important than what your job thinks about you. And honestly, they wouldn't care anyway. And especially as a firefighter, the amount of trauma that you see, they kind of expect you to get mental health issues throughout your career. So, you know, if there's any other people in the emergency services or really high stress jobs or anything like that at all, honestly, your mental health is so much more important than what a job or a boss thinks about you seeking help. And actually, it's a sign of strength if you go and get help rather than a sign of weakness. So definitely go and get some help if you need it, for sure. But my whole reason of writing this book, one, to talk about it and make it out there and open for people to talk. Men don't talk enough about their feelings, what they're going through, if they need support, and actually seeking that support. But also, the fact is that, like, men's postnatal depression doesn't get talked about at all. In fact, I found like barely anything online about it. And I do genuinely believe that. And you know what? People I speak to, they turn and say, "Oh, I didn't know men could get that." Yep, they certainly can. So I want to get it out there. I want people to talk about it. I want it to be an open subject. You know, as a dad, you're kind of put from number one to back of the list when a baby's born. And you know what, rightfully so. You know, the baby and mother do take priority. The physical stresses and strains they go through, the mental stresses and strains they're going through. I do get the fact that you are sort of back of the list, but your health and your mental health is still just as important as anyone else's. And my thing was that I couldn't properly look after my family when I was suffering. You need to be right because you've got a family to look after. So it was kind of like a whistle stop tour, but I think I've covered most of the book. But you know, I'm not saying this because I want sales. I like, people ask me, "Oh, how many books have you sold?" I was like, I don't know. I don't care. I never wrote this book to be a best-selling author or anything like that. I honestly couldn't care less. I haven't once looked at, you know, how many I've sold or anything like that. My biggest thing is I want that to change one person's life. If someone reads that book and goes, "Oh my gosh, like, I'm feeling this, I need to get help," and goes and gets that help and gets better, my job is done. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and for those of you who are interested, there is the link for the book in the description. So I will make sure that that link is there. And I feel like this is what I was initiating earlier. It was basically saying that, yes, this is such a unique story, but it's because there is nothing else out there. People aren't talking about it. And just as you so rightly said, like, men have been preconditioned to be a certain way, right? Masculine behavior is associated with power and prestige and, you know, authority and things like that. And same with females, right? They are submissive, they are quiet, they are, you know, nurturing. And we are so filled with these biases in society that actually it does take a courageous person to say, look, this is happening for me, this is happening at the moment, and how can I deal with this? But a lot of times you end up feeling isolated because you think you're alone, and that's what happened to you, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm not sharing anything, I may as well just shut down and ignore it. But I wanted to ask you, actually, Rich, was there any inkling, was there anything that had gone on for you regarding your mental health prior to Archie being born?
Not that I'm aware of. Obviously, I've got a job where I saw trauma. You know, being a firefighter then was, you know, you do see death, you do see horrific injuries, you do, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to go into a burning building to go rescue someone or something, or, you know, whatever. There is stuff going on in the background. There was nothing that was showing that there was any sort of issues and stuff. Obviously, you have your family life as well. You know, you have thoughts and feelings, good days, bad days. You know, obviously relationships and stuff. There was so much stuff going on that there's stuff in your mind that's always playing in your mind, but nothing that really sort of is like, oh, I'm suffering or anything at all. So there will always be little things that may have been niggling. You know, you've got to think of relationships, you've got to think of money, you've got to think of job. You know, unfortunately, in this society that we live in today, we're constantly fed negative news. You know, I actively don't watch the news, but if someone's got it on in the background, you're still subconsciously taking it in. We have positive, we have negative talk all around us, all the time. And unfortunately, again, being in the fire service, it's really quite rife. Like, there is a lot of negativity. The reason being is that you are essentially waiting there for the next incident to occur. And, you know, that could be the day that your life ends. It's a little bit morbid, and I'm sorry to drop it in there, but essentially that's the sort of thing. You're waiting. I sometimes tell people you're waiting to die at the end of the day, because you are waiting for that next thing that you know in full well that you may not go home that day. There's all these different sorts of things that play on your mind, but nothing stood out as like, I'm suffering. You know, I felt like I had everything in control. I felt like everything was great. You know, I was actually really enjoying life, really excited about having a second child. And yeah, obviously after he's born, then, you know, it was just it was a real struggle, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, Rich, you're not doing it justice. I know you've shared your story, but the book, honestly, guys, you got to go read it, because it was so well written, and understanding why these things had come about, like hearing your experiences and how you felt. I felt like that was definitely something that was it was really great how you'd written it, and the fact that it wasn't edited, it just goes to show how well you wrote it as well. But moving on from, you know, how you'd overcome that, going through therapy, having your own tools, putting these benchmarks of habits and, you know, wellness strategies that you've put in now, how have you gone from that to where you are now? Because as I said earlier, I'm like, you look different, and, you know, we've been through coaching, but how is that different? Like, what's different about you right now, having putting those processes in place, seeing the reward, seeing the feeling of where you're at now? So what's going on for you at the moment?
No, great question. I think the I'll take it back to and then put it into stages. So, like, obviously when I was struggling, I went and got counselling. I had some sessions with the counsellor. I think it made things easier. It just took off that little bit of pressure. So going back to those pigeonhole things, it just helped me to process a few things. And you know what, I won't go into it, but some of the things that came up in counselling were stuff from when I was like a kid, and I was like, I didn't even know that was an issue. Like, there was stuff that just popped up, and I was like, I didn't even know that was a problem. Like, that's really weird. So it helped me process a few things. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, if you go into counselling and think it's going to cure everything, it's not. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I know people have different experience with counselling. It worked quite well for me, but it's never. I don't think anyone can go into a counselling session and say it's going to absolutely 100% make everything better. It just helps you process sort of stuff. And you know what? I was naive going into counselling. I didn't know what to expect. I told the counsellor that. She said to me, "Oh, what do you expect to get out of these sessions?" And I was like, "I don't know. I genuinely don't know." Like, I've never done this before. I've just come here on recommendation. I'm giving it a go. I'm open minded. I just need some help. Please help me. Like, and it just helped me to process some stuff. Obviously, once I've got through that first few processes, I had a few things I can play around with to make myself a little bit better. But that's obviously when, you know, I met you, Tulshi, and, you know, I told you in person, but you're just like a light that just came into my life, like, honestly. And I'm not just saying that because she's on a call. Like, I'm saying that because genuinely, like, we met through a mutual friend. It was all talking about motorsport, and then all of a sudden, you know, you sort of reached out and just talked about a few things that you're trying and whether you want to give some. And honestly, the coaching was just exactly what I needed at exactly the right time. I'm going to be honest, I was lost. I didn't really know my purpose in life, and I did a lot of reading on personal development, self-help books, audio books. I love anything to do with personal development, the law of attraction, law of vibration, all these sorts of things I was obsessed with. But the biggest thing, people go, oh, align your goals to your purpose. And I was like, what is my purpose? And people go, what is your why? And you're like, I don't really know. I was really confused as to what was going on. And actually, working with you, Tulsi, you just managed to break it down completely. And when I then realized that, I was just on completely the wrong path. I was trying to do things, my values, I actually started a business in helping people who were suffering with mental health, and especially men. There's people who were in the same situation as me. And I was like, look, I've got the tools to be able to help people there. And I was just like, this is what I'm going to do. And then all of a sudden I was like, but I hate the fact that I'm charging people for my time for this. So it was the worst business ever, because I gave away everything that I had for free. It never made me any money. And I was like, you know what, that's not what I'm doing. I want to support people. I want to give my time. I want to come on podcasts like this, talk about my experiences, but I will never charge anyone for that, because I don't think you can charge people for their sort of, or I can't, especially just for their mental health and physical health and well-being, to try and help them there. But you just made things so much clearer for me. It was literally like going into the forest and you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I'm going to go and get lost. And you just turn around and say, right, here's your path, Rich. And then you've taken me most of the way, and you like, you know the way now, like you crack on. And I'm just like, yes, I love this. Like, so yeah, it got me into property, led me into the next thing. I mean, I'm a massive fan of property. I love like anything to do with properties, mainly residential properties. But then it led me to my next thing of the Costa del Sol and luxury real estate. And I've attracted this into my life, but I was essentially headhunted. I was brought into a company. I'm working in partnership with them, so I'm self-employed, but working in partnership with them. But now in the world of luxury real estate, I've got a load of villas in Marbella that I'm now selling, and it's honestly, I'm just literally on cloud nine with it. It is simply incredible.
I love that. Going through your past, unveiling all of the skeletons in your closet and just going, okay, so what is going on with me right now? And if you hadn't had done that, I don't think you were prepared to go forward with your purpose. So as you were saying that, you weren't sure about the why, because everybody's like, what's your why? What's your purpose? What's your ambition in life? And it's not an easy question to answer, not at all. And I feel like breaking it down in digestible conversations that we were going through different tasks and exercises, and seeing where you were at the beginning of the coaching to where you are now, especially with certainty of, even when you said, I want to be coaching dads and I want to be coaching them through this. And then you thought to yourself, well, wait a second, it doesn't feel right. And that was the biggest thing, right? It didn't feel right. And now you're in this. You can see how your face lights up when you talk about residential property, when you talk about luxury properties. It's like there is this passion, there's this enthusiasm, there's this knowledge, skill set that you've already got, and now you're honing it into a business. And it's just like, how something you just say, well, this was so obvious. Why? Sometimes you think, why didn't I get there sooner? But you needed to go through all those stages to uncover all of those demons, all of the things that were in your path, basically, in order for you to move forward. And I feel like you definitely exert that level of enthusiasm, passion, optimism as you are now. Anybody who speaks to you, like, they feel good in your presence because you are so optimistic. You are, genuinely authentic in what you say and how you act with people. So I definitely think that is in your energy, right? It's how you are portraying yourself and how you are attracting all these different things into your life.
No, absolutely. And I think, even for yourself, Tulsi, the career that you've had has been incredible. I mean, most people will chop off their left arm to have a CV that you've got and the opportunities that you've had. And, you know what? And then when people turn around and say, well, why are you now going alone? And you're like, no, this is exactly what I was meant to do. Like, this is exactly my purpose. And I think we're quite similar, is that, you know, we have got a lot of stuff going on. There are many parts to what we are doing in life. And I know full well that you are as busy as anything. And you know what, actually, I'm exactly the same. And I think, you know, people go, I can't keep up with what you're doing. And I've certainly had this. I know before talking to you, I was lost. I didn't really know what my purpose was. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had tried a lot of things. I am a go-getter. I won't just sit in a job and just wait for something to appear. I will go find it, and I will try lots of different things. And some people go, "Oh, you're just trying to be a jack of all trades," and it's like, no, I'm actually trying to find the one thing that I want to have for the rest of my life. But I know with you, you know, your background as well is that some people go, well, why don't you say doing that? That was an amazing job. And you're just like, yeah, well, I've got bigger things to do. Like, is that okay? Can I do something bigger than what's already massive? Like, and I think if you look at the top entrepreneurs out there, you know, the people who we talk about day in, day out, they have gone and done it. Like, you have to go through, I'm not going to say hardship, because it's not always hardship, but you have to go through certain things in life to reach that sort of that goal and be that top of your game. And that's what makes people special. I strongly believe that anyway. I do think that I had to go through certain things and seek that coaching. And I'm so glad I did, because now what it's done for me, it's been incredible. It's been such a great journey. But I'm sure you've been through something similar with that.
With the coaching, you mean, or the?
No, I'm more thinking about sort of the journey you've gone through. You know, obviously your sort of background and the jobs that you've done, and then going through. I know you've mentioned to me previously is obviously. Sorry if you didn't want to mention this out there, but sometimes you're just like, oh, I don't know if I'm going in the right direction. I don't know if I'm doing right. But you look at you now and you just think you were going in the right direction. You were doing right, and you're absolutely thriving now.
And it's so funny you say that, because there's still, you know, in my brain, I'm like, well, yeah, that's the CV. That's what I've done. And now I'm in this moment and I'm like, what have I done? You know, what have I accomplished? And for an outside person, it's all well and good to go, yeah, look at your CV. I feel like that's amazing. You've worked with Formula One and you've done all of this. And then I'm just like, yeah, but just as you so rightly said, Rich, that isn't it. That isn't the be all and end all. What else is there? And as entrepreneurs, that you so rightly said, you know, we are going to go through different avenues. We're going to pick up different projects and different ideas, because we are creators at the end of the day. Entrepreneurs are creators. But the only thing about entrepreneurs is you can't always be in your skill set. You can't always create, and you can't always use that to get forward. It's almost like, well, okay, so now I have to do my own admin. Now I have to do my taxes. Now I have to do all these like little bitty things of networking and all of these things. So sometimes it's easier to go into an organization where everything is already in its own structure, but you're trying to do this as an individual. And I feel like sometimes the momentum, just as you talked about earlier today, is having that momentum. It's just, you're just pushing the ball that little bit further. And sometimes people don't see that until they see the big result. So it's almost like you can kind of be hidden and not really showcase what you're doing. And then all of a sudden you come out with a book. You know what I mean? So it's like, how long did it take you to write? How long did it take you to go through that experience? And it's in this book, and you're like, oh, is this it? Is this my story? Is this my, you know, current situation? But like, it took such a big process. It took a series of processes, a series of habits, a series of learnings and lessons and writing and publishing, because all of those processes just leads to that one thing. And I feel like at the moment, I'm probably digressing from what you were saying, but at the moment I'm like, well, let me just be and explore all these different avenues and figure out, you know, what my purpose is. Because even then I think people think, oh, she's really confident and she knows what she's doing and she knows where she's going. But I think we all have feelings of, am I on the right path? Am I heading in the right direction? But even in the unknown, you just have to trust that you are. Trust that you are, because just as you said, that path led you to write the book. It led you to connect with men who possibly need that support. But then it also led you into this direction where you always had this interest about properties. You always had this enthusiasm about luxury, places in the sun. That was what we talked about even before you'd honed in what your purpose was. And now actually seeing all the jigsaw puzzles coming together, because before it's like, oh my God, it's a mess. What do I do with this? And it's all you do, a little bit, just piece them together. And then you kind of look back a few months or years down the line and like, oh, I see what I was trying to kind of piece together, but you
No,
don't see it at the
absolutely.
time.
No, I think that's the beautiful thing of having the coach. And if anyone else is in that situation where you're just like, oh my God, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I know I want more out of life. I'm in a job where I've got no sort of future, or you feel like that at all. Because that's exactly how I felt. I felt like I need to get out of my job. I'm going to be honest. I tell people I hated my job. People will say to me, "Oh, but it's a safe job." I'll say, "Look, nothing about being a firefighter is safe.
Yeah.
Like, that's not safe. It's secure. Don't get me wrong. It's a secure job. I get paid every single month at the
Yeah.
same time, and I get the same amount of money, etc., etc., etc. But you know what? It's not safe, and it's not what I wanted to do for my life. I've got some sort of purpose, and some people are very, very happy in just doing what they're doing and just getting by. Absolutely
Yeah.
fine. That
Yeah.
was not me. I was
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
stay and get by. I personally believe life, you get one shot of this, you might as well go live it. I'd rather give everything, and I don't want to play it safe. I don't want to make it. Don't want to tiptoe my way to death. That's one of my things I say in my head is that I'm not interested in playing it safe. I want to go and have fun. I want to go and explore. I want to see the world. There's so much more than just working for 40 years of your life to just retire.
Mhm.
And so I was just like, look, I need to go do something. I need to find something more. And it did take coaching to like put all the pieces together, or at least start putting the pieces together and let the rest of it happen. But I just think for people out there who are umming and ahhing what they want to do, they're a bit unhappy, they feel like they can't be bothered to go to work on a Monday morning, because that's what I felt. I was finding reasons as to why I needed to be sick, and especially throughout COVID, such an easy excuse as such. And I'll quite happily say this. And I was finding reasons as I was like, oh, was that just a cough then? I bet. And obviously being a firefighter, I was still working throughout COVID. I was like, oh, I coughed. Like maybe I should just call in sick, or I'll just go. I'm self-isolating because I coughed once. And you're like, Rich, come on, go to work, do a test, note you're negative, go to work and just crack on with life. Don't make excuses. And the reason being I was doing that, I was making excuses because I was uninspired. I didn't really have anything
Mm.
going. It wasn't my purpose. It was, if you're feeling like work is a struggle, it is because you're not following your passion, your purpose. I say go for it, just try it. I wrote a book and people laughed at me when I said I wrote a book, and I was like, don't care. And then after a little while people turn around and go, you know what, fair play to you, I'd love to write a book and never have. And there's people out there who are a lot older than me go, wow, I don't know how you managed to do that. And you go, it wasn't exactly that hard. It's just putting a bit of words onto. Well, I typed them even. I didn't even write them down. When I say write a book, I typed a book. Like, you can even get devices now. We can talk into stuff and it just writes it for you. Like, it's so easy to write a book, but it's just like, it's the whole concept of it. And I just think whatever you want to do in life, just go do it. You get one shot of this, go make it count. Like, if you want to change the world, go change the world. If you want to just go to Australia, go to Australia. If you're already in Australia and you want to go elsewhere. Like, do
Mm.
whatever fills your passion. Like, and yeah, it may take time to get there. You've got to go through several things, but that journey is honestly, when you reach that final destination, And honestly, it isn't a final destination, because when you get there, you'll have the next thing. You look at all these successful entrepreneurs and they keep going and going. You're like, look, you've made all the money in the world. Why do you still do more? Like, look at the likes of like the massive companies like Apple or Tesla, or, all these different things. Like, why are you doing more? Like, surely you've done what you need to do. Just sit back, relax, and, take a break. And you're like, no, like, there's more to do. I've got to achieve the next thing and the next thing. And, that's what I've got in my life. But I do think like people just need to go and forget what other people think about them. Like, just forget about it. Would you swap places with that person who's giving you that advice? If the answer is no, don't listen to it. If the answer is yes, then maybe take some notes from them. And, if it still doesn't fit in with you, then just say, no worries, go and find the next person. It's honestly, go and do what you're meant to do. And have fun doing it.
Oh, I love that. I love that completely. And it's so funny that you say that about companies, that they were founded on passion and creativity and innovation and skill set, right? And they learned, they failed, they produced, and it was never about the money. It was never about the money. If you ask any entrepreneur why you're doing this, money is always the second or third reward. The first one is always, how can I exert my purpose? How can I, follow through with my passion? How can I be happy on this journey? Because as you said, the destination will come and go, right? When you're there, it's like, oh, okay, great. But it took you maybe 10 years to get there, right? And you're going to remember those 10 years. You're going to remember what you learned. And I definitely think that. So, Rich, we normally go straight into our next part of the podcast, which is our health motivational tip of the day. And I was wondering, what would be your one health motivational tip for our audience today? If they could take one thing away, what would you say?
Great question. I would say go and take the first step, whatever it might be. I'm not gonna put this straight into the gym. Obviously, I used it this morning, and I went to the gym. I got up at 5. Whatever it is for you, whether it's business related, and that's going to help your sort of, whether it be like financially, or for, start doing your passion, whether it be your family life. If you're looking for a partner, or you're thinking about having a child, or you want to do something, wherever it is in your life, just go and take the first step. It's always the hardest, don't get me wrong, but just go do it. And you know what? When I was first thinking about this, and obviously you mentioned it like just before we started the call, I was just like, what should I do? And I was thinking of loads of different things, and I've just changed it just on the spot. But I honestly think that first step is the step to your new life. Like, it's the biggest step you're going to make. Making that choice is the hardest step before you take the first step. Actually, that's probably the hardest. But when you do go do it, everything else after that just comes easier. And yeah, you're going to need a bit of determination. You're going to need a bit of planning involved. There's so much to it. But I think the biggest thing is whatever you want to go and do, just take that first step. And then obviously every day after that, you take one more step. And I think the way you sum that up is every marathon always starts with the first step. It's as simple as that.
I agree completely. And it doesn't need to be a big thing. It can be, okay, so I'm going to do some research around this, just how you started. I'm going to do a little bit more reading around this. I'm going to buy this book because I'm interested in that. And how can I apply what that book is telling me? So I think that sometimes when people say first step, it could be a big thing. But what you're saying, Rich, is it doesn't need to be a big thing. Like, have all these little steps in place, and all of a sudden you're gathering your momentum, you're moving that ball, just as you said at the beginning of the call. And I definitely think that is an amazing, perfect tip of the day. I'm going to add on my tip of the day, and based on what you shared today, I wanted to say, for those people who are going through anything mentally, emotionally, speak to someone. Just share your feelings, just speak to someone. I know for some people, I remember back in the day now, they used to put out vlogs and blogs and share those feelings so they can, through community sites and forums and things like that. And this day and age, I feel like we're more connected, but we're more disconnected from people. So, you know, reach out to anybody who you feel that could listen, that can listen, and just be there for you rather than having to come up with an answer or a solution. So do share your feelings, talk about how you feel and what's going on for you. And even if it means journaling, just as you did, you know, you wrote down your feelings, Rich, and that's how the book was created. Maybe just sharing your feelings to your journal, and maybe sharing it to somebody in person, because at the end of the day, if somebody actually asks, how are you? And then you end up breaking down and telling them everything, because that tends to happen, right? And, you know, how can you share how you're feeling just with yourself? But Rich, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. What an honor to have you on this podcast and share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences.
I honestly think it's more of an honor being asked to be on your podcast. I think thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you to everyone who's listened as well. You know, honestly, I'd never thought I'd be sitting here talking about the things I would do, and you know, just to make, if I can help one person in my life, like my life is like complete. You know, that's how I feel. That's what I think about every single day, is who can I help today, and if I have helped you. If you want to reach out and just say thank you, or if you want to ask a question, you know, I'm more than open to answer really anything, to be honest. I'm being so open in other podcasts and in my book, and you know, in life, I'm more than happy to have a chat. So please feel free to reach out on my social medias, or through Tulshi, or you know, whoever. But no, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rich. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you found this podcast useful, comment below, share it with your friends and family. And if you would like to be a part of our community on Patreon, the link can also be in the description box below. So hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, click the notification bell so you don't miss out on our latest podcasts. And I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.